Hi, my name's Simon Bradbury and I'm the lead designer on Stronghold DE. And I've been at Firefly Studios forever, or to be exact, probably about 23 years.
My name is Paul Harris. I'm the Chief Operating Officer at Firefly Studios. I've been at Firefly now for 20 years and I'm helping with the production of Stronghold Definitive Edition.
Stronghold DE is a game we feel really lucky to be able to make. Stronghold came out over 20 years ago. We put a lot into it. We put a lot of time, a lot of heart and soul into it. And since then, we've made lots of Stronghold games. But there's something really lovely about being able to go back and revisit that classic.
The original game is still played by loads of players around the world, but it doesn't work that great on modern PCs. So this is our chance for us to remaster it, and with a new engine, new features, new content, and more accessibility to make it easier to play the game than before.
To be able to take areas that weren't absolutely polished, to add more content to it, to reimagine the game for the modern era. We're improving the graphics, obviously, we're adding lots of new content, but more than that, we're adding a lot of quality of life benefits. And for me, that's what's important, getting to the nitty-gritty of the game. When you're playing the game, you'll really notice these little things, probably more so even than the graphics or the fact that you're playing a whole new campaign.
Back in 2020, I remember Nick messaging me with the idea of doing a Stronghold Definitive Edition. It's something that we had loosely talked about over the years. The original Stronghold game was coded in quite a particular way. It was designed really to maximise the hardware of the time, and it would have been quite hard for modern outsourcers to really understand exactly how it works, especially without any input from us. So, it made more sense for us to do it ourselves. We just had to really wait for the time when we could do it. But luckily, it's turned out that we were able to free up some of Andy's time. Andy's the original programmer of Stronghold. He had some time to look into the code, have a think about how we might update it, bring it to a modern engine, and really that's when the project really got off its feet.
The longer I think we thought about it, the more it made sense to us. This was something we made over 20 years ago, and whilst good, it's not perfect. And this, in a way, it was a really, really, really nice chance for us to go back and to polish what is, I think, quite a well-made game already, and to add more content to it. A lot of those voices, they still live in my head, the rat, the snake, the pig and the wolf. So it felt great to be able to go back and revisit those old friends. So Stronghold DE will be launching with 2 campaigns spread across 14 missions, which is quite a chunk, quite an exciting thing to be embarking on. The new campaign will feature Sir Longarm's niece, who has been captured and taken away. You are playing a young, newly promoted captain of the guard, whose job it is to go and rescue her. This will take you across the lands of various old adversaries.
You're kind of persistent, aren't you?
We've got, obviously, quite a few of the old original team members are developing it, and a lot of people that have been at Firefly for a long time and have known subsequent games. Everybody is really passionate about it, and everybody wants to do things slightly differently. And so perhaps the biggest challenge and the biggest source of conflict, not really conflict, but the biggest source of debate in the studio has been about things like how hard to make it. Eric and I, who made the original campaigns, are making these ones, and we want to make them hard. People that have perhaps worked on some of the more recent games want to make them a bit easier. Both people are right. I mean, the original game was hard, and we want to honour that. Modern games tend to be a bit easier, and if we want to broaden the appeal of the game, then we need it to be a bit easier.
We really wanted to make sure that the new campaigns were a treat for the Stronghold veterans. So they are, admittedly, or maybe unashamedly, quite hard, but I think that's what Stronghold players like, that's what they expect. But also it's got some nice new elements to it. So when we were making the missions in Stronghold Definitive Edition, there were quite a few map editor features that we had in subsequent Stronghold games that were missing from the original Stronghold game. which was quite nice actually, because it meant that we could add little new triggers, new conditions, actions that actually allow us to make slightly different missions from the original Stronghold campaign, which will mean that players have a little bit more variety and some new mechanics to play with, which I think they'll appreciate.
I think that the campaign should play as if you're playing them after the original campaign. So it makes sense that if you actually made it through to mission 21 of the original, then you should be playing a fairly hard mission. There's no point in taking you back to the start and collect a couple of buckets of apples. We're designing these missions so that you're probably going to need to replay them, perhaps more than once. But that's part of the joy of a Stronghold mission, is tactically figuring out what it is you need to do in it and then executing that well. We don't want you to beat a Stronghold mission in one go, because then I think we failed you as mission designers.
The historical castles in the original Stronghold game were quite a unique feature, I feel. It's actually the first mode I remember playing when I played Stronghold. And that's something we wanted to actually sort of plus on in Stronghold Definitive Edition. So rather than just adding some new castles, we actually made a historical castle trail.
Essentially, it's a sequence of sieges that you either attack or defend on. And to get to the end of it and get your achievement, you need to run through a geographical sequence of castles starting up in the north of Scotland and ending somewhere in southern Europe. It's essentially more sieges and more defences, and it has allowed us to feature some new castles into the game. But I think actually having it as part of a sequence of castles, like a mini campaign, feels a lot more satisfying when you get to the end of it. My favourite castle on the trail is Marksburg in Germany. That's a castle that we featured in Stronghold 2 and we've brought it through into DE. I just like the sighting of Marksburg, and it played really well in 2, so I'm pretty sure it's going to play pretty well here. So as well as a whole new campaign for the game, the original campaign obviously has had a bag full of improvements as well. And I've been enjoying playing through the original again. It's been kind of spooky actually, listening to the rat tell me that he's going to triumph over my miserable armies again. He never does. But playing that again has been brilliant.
We wanted to do as much work on the old campaign as we could. The original game was only really designed for very small screens, like 800, 600, so a lot of the graphics were quite small. And Stronghold Definitive Edition, you can play in 4K resolution. So that was quite a challenge. But what we've done is, we took all the user interface screens, we took the original assets where we could, or we upscaled the existing assets if we had to. And then we made improvements in the post-processing to really try and kind of bring the quality as good as possible. It feels so good when you're playing it in 4K. We've redone things like the victory defeat screens. They've got nice animations on them, which weren't in the original. And so it's just a really nicely presented campaign.
It's the smaller quality of life improvements that I think I've noticed the most. My favourite actually is there's a little arrow on the book telling you whether your popularity is currently going up or down, which helps immensely in the game, because you can look at that arrow and go, oh right, yes, I better do something about my popularity before everybody buggers off.
Simple things like tooltips, adding extra tooltips, because sometimes Stronghold doesn't really explain itself very well. Also things like just hotkeys. All the hotkeys are customizable.
It's those little things, those little quality of life that I think will widen the game to a bigger audience, as well as really please existing fans of the game. As well as the old guys back from 20 years ago to add more onto the game, we've also managed to rope in a couple of the old voice actors. So we've had recording sessions with Jay and Christopher, and we've added in not only full voice work for the new campaigns, but also for other areas of the game, for bits like the greetings when you first log in.
Greetings, Lord Jamie.
I know a lot of players would like to see the rat, the pig, the snake and the wolf back. The problem is that those voices are quite iconic. Rather than trying to recreate the original voice actors and, to be honest, producing something that fans would think was slightly substandard and not quite how they remember the original characters, we felt it was better actually to use a new character in the new campaigns to tell the story and also give you in-mission messages and things like that. One thing that players are always asking us for is higher unit counts in our games. And this was something that we really wanted to try and achieve with the Definitive Edition. In the original game, there's a limit of, I think it's 1,500. In Stronghold Definitive Edition, we've doubled that to 3,000, which gives us a chance to make something slightly different, bigger armies. Players can make bigger armies in multiplayer and their games, and I think it's something that players really appreciate.
Perhaps the biggest thing that I'm excited to get in front of players, because I would say this because I've worked on it, is the new campaign. It's been brilliant. It's been such a privilege to be able to go back to the original campaign with Eric, my co-partner in crime, and make these new campaigns. So I would design the campaign, write the script, and make the maps. Eric then goes and makes the fiendishly difficult scenarios to go and play. Then I have to play them and give him some feedback on it. And so I've been playing Stronghold again for the last 3 months, which is weird because it was so long ago since we made the original that actually playing it again puts you back 20 years, 20 odd years. And playing it again, I've enjoyed it so much. I just think it just feels like the original game again, and I just can't wait for players to be able to see that as well. So the game is out, I believe, on November the 7th of this year, and please do go and wishlist it on Steam.